Morning, David. How are you going?
Well, thanks. Yourself, Rob?
Yeah, good, thank you. What have been the learnings from the week after the draw? And it was probably a disappointing one for you.
Yeah, it's the capacity for us to continue to play the way that we need to. When pressure comes to bear, there's that learning of what you need to do. We tried to stabilise the game towards the back end of that quarter. We had our chances to probably retain a bit more possession. But yeah, there's certainly more upside, mate, than there was disappointment, to be honest.
Yes, well, I was going to ask, how have you approached that?
Yeah, look, we put a lot of work into the break. The players went away. We had a significant review last week with the pieces of the game that we thought were really important for us moving forward. We saw some of that come into our game really quickly, which was really encouraging. We want to continue to get out there and see whether or not we can replicate that again this week, mate, against another top line opponent.
Hey, David, Brent from Win TV Hobart. What about the Tassie connection this week, mate, against Fags in your old club? You must be pretty pumped to be able to do that at Blunston Arena.
Yeah, it's a unique set of circumstances. When I made my debut, I debuted down at North Hobart on my old ground, and Fags and I have had a long coaching history from TAC Cup to AFL reserves and now at AFL senior level. So, yeah, it's great from an acknowledgement for two Tasmanians with north-south rivalry to be able to go back home and coach against each other. His 100th game, he's done a fantastic job up there with Brizzy. So, yeah, really looking forward to the game back home. And, we have great crowds that turn up. Our Tassie members are able to come to the game for free this week. We're really looking forward to our fans getting out and coming out to support us.
Just on the crowd last week, there was a bit spoken about how low it was. Do you expect a few more through the gates this weekend? Yeah,
we'd like to think so. The way that we played last week, maybe there's a few more, that'll come out, and hopefully we can deliver that same level of intensity and performance. So it'd be great to have, some more numbers around. Even though the numbers were low, the crowd was great. We had great support out there. So, and our players really, really know and feel the difference when we've got our supporters coming out to the games.
And just one more from me, if that's all right. Grant Birchall was asked during the week about when Chris Fagan left Hawthorn to go to Brisbane. He had a few good results against Hawthorn early on. Do you feel the same about Brisbane, and you know them particularly well? Or do you think you know most teams pretty well these days?
Yeah, look, you probably have a more intimate understanding of players. Whether or not you can get that execution in the game, mate, we'll wait and see. So doesn't necessarily follow, but yeah, I obviously have a more detailed understanding of how they were playing last year. They've adjusted a few things, so we need to be on top of that. But not sure of the size of the advantage, so to speak, that it may or may not give you.
David, how close is Luke McDonald to returning to the senior side? Do you expect that to be this week?
Yeah, our plan is that if Luke gets through training this week, he'll be back in. So Luke's worked his backside off to probably get to a point where we got clarity from the surgeons last week, got the all clear. So his loads are really good. If he gets through today, then yeah, our expectation is that he comes back into the team this week.
David, lots of focus on, obviously, the game this week, but have you taken a minute to reflect? You mentioned all those elements previously with you and Fags and where you come from and Hobart, the connection. Have you taken a minute to reflect on just the significance of where you are at now and the whole journey this week and how it sort of comes to pass that you play against Fags in Tassie?
Yeah, I have. You do from time to time, from where we sort of first started to now, it's probably, I think, by the time we get through our coaching, cycle and career, we'll probably reflect back this as a fairly poignant, time for both of us. But yeah, very, very proud to be able to go back home and attack our team and coach against Fags, who's back home in his 100th game down there.
Have your players sort of spoken to you about it as well, or are they sort of aware of the whole full circle moment sort of nature of it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I think it's more about us as a team heading down there and what we want to deliver and stand for, more so than it is about, myself going back home and playing against our other my old club. So. We had Aidan Core. We played against GWS last week. He unfortunately couldn't get out there, but I think, to be honest, it's more around what we're trying to build and the learnings that and the growth that we're trying to implement in our game and in our team from week to week.
Big job for Robbie Tarrant this week. I'm just wondering, obviously you threw him straight in last week with no VFL games because you couldn't. I mean, how did he get through and how's he feeling? Obviously, there's a couple of guys you could chuck him on this week.
Yeah, no, he pulled up really well. I spoke to him early in the week, so his recovery was good. I think he was generally sore. It'd be a while since he's played in that sort of level of intensity and length of time. So, yeah, look, Robbie's total pro, his preparation. We didn't have that VFL game, as you say, but we created some work internally that replicated probably about 3/4 of a VFL game during that last week of his preparation. So we were really confident about him going in with the right loads. And, he's probably got one of 2 or 3 down there that, from a defensive perspective, that he'll be able to play on this week.
Can I just ask about Cam Zurhaar too? Last week, obviously, you didn't get the full result you wanted, but there were moments sort of late where some players sort of stepped up and showed their capacity to handle big moments. Do you look at someone like Cam Zurhaar in his performance late and say, that could be sort of a big moment for him?
Yeah, I think rather than the individual, I think it's the collective of how we need to play that last quarter out in its entirety. I mean, there were some elements where we kicked, Cam kicked that goal. We thought we'd been able to maybe break that momentum a little bit. Then we let that next centre bounce slip a little bit. But yeah, I think that's right. I think the identification for us as coaches is to help those players learn to identify when those moments are occurring. And they're probably not just the last quarter either. I thought our response in the second and the third, particularly in some of those times where we were wrestling control of the game back, were also pretty significant. But yeah, look, I think without one person individually, without it necessarily being Cam, our expectation as a group is that we all step up to the breach in that particular point in time, and that's what we need to chase. Those times, if we want to play finals, ultimately, that's what you need to be able to do.
David, have you got a view on the David McKay bump and its potential influence on how the game is played tonight when the tribunal meets? It's a pretty sort of major moment for our game in some ways.
It is, Rob. My thoughts are that I think as an industry we're trying to look after all players. Players coming into the contest, players at the contest. We know the significance and the care around the head. A couple of my comments would be, there's been a lot of discussion around, that's a footy incident. I think with where it may land tonight, that might be redefined. We might have to define our thinking around, that was just a footy incident. I think it may be shifting. Sounds like it well and truly may be shifting. The difficulty that is if it shifts now, it's halfway through the season and it's hard to manage and coach, the player sort of through that in the remaining part of the year, particularly for teams that are in finals. So, it's going to be a really interesting case, isn't it, to see where it lands and then the implications that then roll through as a result of that. So, I think we're all waiting with bated breath to see where it lands and what those implications going forward might look like to the competition.
And then there's the next question: is that really the tribunal's role, or mid-season, or should a decision on that be made by the rule makers at the end of the season?
So I don't know if the rule makers were predicting that you'd end up with a scenario at this case. I think one of the interesting pieces out of all of this is that maybe we need to look at action versus outcome. There's been a lot of discussion around should we be pointier around the actions of players within those incidents more so than it being delivered as a result of outcome. I mean, we had one with Taron Thomas early in the year against the Hawks. Had the outcome been different, or a concussion or a fracture of another player, then that may have escalated that particular report to a different level. So maybe we need more clarity on action rather than it just being now delivered on outcome.
Can I ask you one on Aaron Hall's season, David? He must have really wrapped with his form.
Yeah, you're right, Brent. He's we were looking for some rebound and bounce out of that half back line. We know Hall, he's got great balance. He reads and predicts the ball really well. Our guys have become accustomed to him, being in those positions where we can release the ball to him. So he's certainly done a terrific job, across that area, being able to move that ball out of our half back area, which becomes an opportunity for us to sort of score. Credit to him. He's worked really hard. In that back end, he's had some really good support with Luke McDonald. If he ends up getting back in the team, McDonald, Siebel, Atley, Hall, it starts to become a reasonably well experienced group down there that has some good balance and some good measures, whether it's defence or attack.
And we all know how good Taran's been, but he just seems to be going to another level each and every game.
Yeah, he does. I think he's a young man that's worked on his craft internally really hard. It's a credit to him. He spends a fair bit of time with Benny Cunnington. Ben's been a bit of an internal mentor for him. He works, closely with Jai. And I think, once Jed gets back in and starts to play in and around that midfield mix, it's certainly got some speed in it. He's got some capacity to end up and read the ball going forward, where he can sort of score some goals coming out of that midfield capacity. So yeah, been really impressed with what he's been able to pick up and deliver in the last month, particularly since we've shifted him into that role in the midfield.